Hey makers, it's Joel with CoBuild19, and today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, generative design. That sounds really complicated and fancy. If we simplify it, what it means is I'm going to write a set of instructions in computer code that the computer is going to use to create a design on my screen. It's that simple. Let's get started. So we're going to start in a search window, and you're just going to type in Scratch like I've done here. You can create that search, and the very first thing that comes up is scratch.mit.edu, Scratch, Imagine, Program, and Share. That's where we want to go. You can log in if you have a login already. Otherwise, we can just click Start Creating. And that is going to bring up our project window. So let's quickly go through this for those who are not yet familiar with Scratch. Over on the far left-hand side, you have your code blocks divided into categories. So you have motion, look, sound, etc. Past that, you have the blocks that are available in that category. Up at the top, you have a few different tabs, a couple of which we will end up using for this tutorial. In the middle here is where you're going to put your code blocks when you're ready to create your code. Over on the right-hand side, this is your emulator window where the code that you create here is going to be executed. Up top, you've got a stop sign and then a green flag. Green flag means go, red stop sign means stop. Right now, we have this sprite that is on our emulator window, and that is the Scratch Cat. We do not need that for this project, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be creating a pattern on the screen. So what we want to do to get started is we are going to create a brand new sprite. So we're going to go down to choose a sprite, and we're going to choose the paintbrush. That is going to bring up a new window for us. And I'm just going to create a very simple couple of objects, and I'll just use some geometric shapes. I'll start with a circle. We'll make a circle. And you can see up here that I can change that. So I'm going to choose a sort of bluish turquoise color for my circle. And I'm going to say no outline for that circle. So now I just am left with this turquoise circle on the screen. Then I'm going to choose the square, and I'm going to create a square. Let's change the color of that square. Let's make it a sort of coral kind of color that matches really nicely with our turquoise circle. We have our outline set to nothing. And now I've got one square and one circle on my screen. But let's say I would like this square, instead of being a square, I'd like for it to be a triangle. You can do that by choosing this cursor arrow that has the cursor pointing at a little circle. What that is going to do is it's going to allow you to edit the points of that. So if you click on a point and you hit the delete key, now you've deleted one of those points. So you've taken your rectangle, which was 4 points, and you've eliminated a point. So now you have 3 points and you have a triangle. So now I've got my turquoise circle and I've got my coral red triangle. So that's it. Play with that. You can do freehand drawings there. You can do fills, you can create outlines, and so on. We're just going to stick with this as we have it. Now we can jump over into the code window, because now we can really start to play with how this thing looks. Now that we have our shapes generated, we can start to add some code that will make them change and move in different ways. So let's start by just creating a simple event for when the green flag is clicked. Okay. Then let's change what we want to happen when the green flag is clicked. Let's change the color of the shapes when we click the flag. So I have in here, change the color effect by 25, and let's click the green flag and see what happens. So you can see that when we click, the colors changed. We can play with this and change the number and see what happens then. So then we barely get a color shift at all. So let's go somewhere in the middle, and there we go. We got a different color shift, okay? Let's add maybe a repeat function to this, where it will do this several times in a row. So let's drop in here a repeat of 10 times. We're going to change the color effect by 10, and we're going to do that 10 times. So let's start it over. And then it did it really, really fast. So it's really kind of hard to see. Let me hit it again. So you see it scrolls through all those colors, but it does it really, really fast. So maybe we'll put in here a wait so that we'll have a little bit of a delay and we can actually watch the colors change. There we go. Now we have 1 second in between each of the color shifts that is happening. Now we can really start to do some kind of crazy things with this and add on to it. And you will be able to play with these and kind of mess with some numbers as you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding another repeat function. And this one is going to be outside of this first repeat function. So now we have 2 repeat functions in here. And then I am going to create a clone of this pattern, or this shape rather, so that it will create a new pattern. So the first thing that I did is I created a clone, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that so it's clear where that clone is going, and we're just going to shift it by 15 degrees. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add another effect to that, because we've got that first effect up here where we change the color. But what I want to do here is let's create a mosaic effect. So what that's going to do is that's going to create like a bunch of these. It's going to sort of create a pattern of that shape. So let's just mess with those numbers. We'll change the mosaic effect to 2. Now what you see happening here is we've got a repeat. Let's set this at 100, and I'm just going to pull random numbers. We're going to set this one at, let's say, 2. Change the color effect. We have set at 4.1 seconds, so it's just going to go really quickly. That's that first kind of embedded repeat function. Then we're going to create a clone that's in this 100 repeat, and then we're going to turn that clone 15 degrees. We're going to change the mosaic effect, and we just said by 2. So let's click that and see what happens. So now it's going to start generating, and as it's generating, it's growing because it's repeating that mosaic function over and over again. So each time it does it, the pattern gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. So now we can stop. Now we can really have some fun and add in some other motion to it. So we can go in here and we can say, let's change the Y and let's change the X. And let's not do that by much. So what that's going to do is over here in our emulator window, if you can kind of draw an imaginary line down the center and then across this window, you have quadrants in here. One is the X-axis, the other is the Y-axis. So what we're doing here when we add the change Y by 10 and change X by 10 is we're actually moving it. Every time that clone shifts, every time it clones itself, it actually moves over and up by a little bit. So now you can see that when I run it, it actually continues until it goes totally off the screen. So that's it. That's a way to generate patterns very simply and very easily. And you can also add in a background if you want to. Let's just add in a blue sky background here. And now we've got a background that we can put our pattern on. So mess with those numbers. Try to create something really, really cool. So I hope you had some fun digging into this idea of generative design using Scratch. I can't wait to see what you create. Make sure that you share that with us. Until next time, happy making.